One murder, one unidentified hand, an entire city judged guilty by association, by geography, by the simple fact of having failed to stop it. That was not injustice to the people who lived it. That was the law working exactly as it was designed to. But if you fled a battlefield, you ceased to exist as a person. Not metaphorically. Spartan society developed one of the most elaborate, most psychologically devastating systems of social annihilation ever recorded for a single category of offense, and that offense was not murder. It was cowardice. The Spartans had a word for the man who fled combat. They called him tresas, the trembler, and the punishment for being a trembler was a kind of death more thorough than execution. To understand why, you have to understand what Sparta actually was. Sparta was not simply a city with an army. It was a society organized entirely around the production of soldiers, and every institution within it existed to serve that singular purpose. From the age of 7, Spartan boys were removed from their families and placed into the agoge, a state-run training system designed to strip away individual identity and replace it with absolute loyalty to the collective military body of the state. Historian Paul Cartledge, in his extensive work on Spartan society and culture, has described the agoge as one of the most intensive systems of identity formation in the ancient world. Boys were deliberately underfed to encourage theft, beaten to build pain tolerance, and subjected to constant competitive evaluation designed to identify and punish any sign of individual weakness. The goal was not to produce skilled individual fighters. The goal was to produce men who would never, under any circumstances, break formation, because in Spartan military doctrine, the formation was everything. The hoplite phalanx, the tightly packed shield wall that formed the core of Greek warfare, only functioned if every man held his position. A single soldier who turned and ran created a gap. That gap exposed the men beside him. And in the brutal physics of ancient close combat, one man's cowardice could collapse the entire formation and get dozens of his comrades killed. This is the practical military logic behind Spartan attitudes toward cowardice, but the punishment that Sparta developed went far beyond what military discipline alone would require. Classicist Nigel Kennell, in his work on Spartan education and social structure, has documented the specific mechanisms of social death that awaited a tresas. He was forbidden from holding any public office. He could be struck by any citizen in public without legal consequence for the striker. He was required to wear a cloak with patches in conspicuous colors, marking him visibly as a coward to everyone he encountered. He was forbidden from shaving half of his beard, creating a permanent, involuntary visual signal of his disgrace. He could not marry. If he was already married, his wife was permitted to leave him without any social cost to her. His daughters became unmarriageable because no Spartan family wanted to associate itself through marriage with the bloodline of a coward. Historian Sarah Pomeroy, in her research on women and family in ancient Sparta, has noted that this last consequence reveals something crucial about how Spartan society understood the crime of cowardice. It was not treated as an individual moral failing that could be contained within the person who committed it. It was treated as a kind of hereditary contamination, a stain that spread outward from the coward to his entire family line, threatening their social and reproductive future indefinitely. A murderer's children were still Spartan children. A coward's children carried his shame. This is the part that reveals the deeper logic at work. In a society where the survival of the entire state depended on the reliability of every single soldier in the formation, an individual act of murder, however serious, represented a contained harm. One victim, one perpetrator. A crime that, however grave, did not threaten the structural integrity of Spartan military society. Cowardice was different. Cowardice was contagious. If one man could break and run without catastrophic consequence, the deterrent that held the entire phalanx together began to erode. Every soldier's willingness to stand and die depended on his absolute certainty that the men beside him would do the same. A single tolerated act of cowardice threatened that certainty for every formation Sparta would ever field again. Anthropologist and military historian Victor Davis Hanson, in his analysis of hoplite warfare and Greek military culture, has argued that the Spartan treatment of cowardice was not an excess of cruelty, but a precise calculation. The state needed every citizen to believe without doubt that social death was worse than physical death, because only that belief could guarantee the kind of suicidal cohesion that made the Spartan phalanx the most feared military formation in the ancient Greek world. The famous Spartan phrase reportedly spoken by mothers sending sons to war, "Return with your shield," or "on it," was not poetic exaggeration. It was a precise statement of the only two acceptable outcomes: victory or death. A living son who had fled was, in the Spartan moral universe, worse than no son at all. Now ask yourself what this reveals about how societies decide what they fear most. Modern legal systems treat homicide as the most severe crime a person can commit because modern legal systems are built around the protection of individual life as the highest value. Sparta inverted that hierarchy completely. It treated the integrity of collective military cohesion as more valuable than any individual life, including the coward's own. This was not irrational. It was a coherent response to Sparta's specific existential situation, a small citizen population permanently outnumbered by an enslaved Helot population many times its size, surviving entirely through military dominance that could never afford a single point of failure. You live inside a legal system that has made different choices about what it fears most, but the underlying logic that every legal system encodes a hierarchy of values and punishes most severely whatever threatens that hierarchy's foundation has not disappeared. Sparta feared the crack in the shield wall more than it feared the blade that killed a man, because one death ended one life. A broken formation could end everything.